Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Klein, and I will be your presenter today. Today, we are discussing donation statements in the donations module, specifically the mid-year donation statements. So it's pretty common amongst our customers that they like to run quarterly donation statements and send those out to their givers as specifically mid-year donation statements. That's a very popular one. Kind of allows people to get kind of a info or updates on where they are for their giving halfway through the year. It's also really helpful if you are a pledging church to get those donation statements out halfway through the year, so those pledging people can see where they are so far in meeting their pledges. If they're on par to hit their pledge. And I'm going to jump right into donation statement. So you can get to it one of two ways, right here in the middle, or you can go up to reports and export and then click on donation statement at the top. One of the biggest things, or one of the bigger questions, I should say, that I hear a lot on support calls is the date range. Okay, and what date range to use, specifically if you're running those quarterly statements. If you come into the screen and you don't change anything and you just simply click the next button, the criteria of who's going to get a donation statement is going to be anyone who made a donation so far in 2025. Okay, so anyone who's made a donation from a penny to $10,000, if there's a gift for that giver within this date range, they will get a donation statement. Okay, typically that criteria works for most people. Okay, now, for example, we just had church or Sunday service, if we look at our calendar here, on the 6th. So if you leave the date range as it is so far and you've put in your donations from the 6th, that date is obviously going to be included when you go to print your donation statements. Okay, now if you want to change that and you only want to see it through the end of June, you can definitely just manually click in here and type or use the down arrow and choose the date that you want. Now, the biggest thing to keep in mind with your date range, okay, the date range that you use here on step 1, that is going to be the date range that your pledge amounts are going to be calculated for. Okay, so let's work through this a little bit. So, for example, if you have a lot of pledgers who have a pledge frequency of annual and you run your date range only halfway through the year, those people's pledge amounts are going to be 0. Okay, so if you have a lot of annual pledgers, so people who specifically have a pledge frequency of annual on their pledge, running a date range through 6/30, you are not going to have a pledge amount calculated for those people because they require the pledge being calculated from the first of the year to the last day of the year. Okay, keep that in mind. If you have a bunch of people who are flat pledgers, regardless of what date range you use, that flat pledge amount is going to be the same. Okay, so if you have someone who pledged $10,000 with a frequency of flat, that $10,000 is going to show as their total pledge amount whether you run the report for the first quarter, 2 quarters, or the whole year. Okay, now monthly pledgers or weekly pledgers, this is where it gets interesting because if you're running it through 6/30 and you have someone who is a monthly pledger, their pledge amount is only going to be calculated for 6 months. Okay, some people really like that. They like to see, okay, here's their pledge amount for 6 months. Here's what they've given so far. It matches. They're over under 0. Perfect. They're on par. They're right where they're supposed to be. Okay, same with weekly pledgers. Now you can still run for the whole year if you want to for those weekly or those monthly pledgers, but just keep in mind their pledge amount, is then going to be calculated for the entire year because it's calculated based on this date range. Okay, I hope that's clear for everybody. If it's not, pop in a question and I can go over it further. So again, there's no right or wrong answer for what date range you use. Specifically, if you're a pledging church, you're going to want to kind of keep in mind of the type of pledgers you have and how you want their pledge amount to be reflected on their donation statements. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave it on 1/1/25 through 6/30/25. If I want to make any changes to the criteria, I can do so here. So next to the number 3, I can click Add Giving and Pledging Criteria. And as you see, as I mentioned earlier, the default is to pull only people who gave. If you want to change that, or say you're a pledging church and you just want those pledgers regardless of if they've given or not, again, it's up to you. But typically, this is going to be the criteria. Only those who gave. I should say that is the criteria unless you go in and you change it and customize it for yourself, okay? So we're going to add that criteria. If you want to add in any membership criteria, that's here at number 1. Click that edit button and you can specify if you want to include inactive people or not. So based on our criteria, we're only pulling people who've made a donation so far this year. So leaving inactive checked will include any inactive people who've made a donation this year. This doesn't mean you're going to be getting everybody who's passed away since the beginning of the church. It just means that if someone's made a donation, they are going to be included even if they aren't active. So if someone has moved away in the first 6 months of the year, or if they've passed away, it's still going to generate a statement for them. Okay? Any membership criteria you want to fill in, status code, location, anything like that, you can do all of that here with a membership field query. Okay? Accounts. This tab allows you to focus in on people who have given to a particular giving account. So say you just want people who've given to general fund, you can push that to the right. Okay, and it'll only generate statements for people who gave to general fund. If you have a specific campaign, so if you only want to generate statements for people that pledge to your general fund campaign for 2025, you can easily select that and then that will filter to only those pledgers. Okay. Sort tab, pretty straightforward. I know we talk about this a lot. This is just the order that you want your donation statements to print out in. You can do by number, by name for alpha order, or by zip code. And then we're going to hit next. So again, step 1 is who we need to generate a statement for based on the time frame. Step 2 is more, what do we want the template to look like? What notes or customizations do I need to do on my donation statement itself? And also, if you want to email them or print them or both, you can do all of that here on step 2. So statement layout up here at the top, this is what your statement is going to look like. And I know I say this in every event, but I just saw a really pretty donation statement. They changed some fonts around. They put their logo up there. It was very pretty. It looked very nice. So you can use the statement designer to go in and do some customizing. I have a whole event on customizing donation statements. So if that's of interest to you, head out to the Resource Center and check out that previously done webinar there. Otherwise, templates are always good. A lot of people go with just the basic template. There's a trifold mailer. There's 2 Canada options. Those do require a signature. And then there's also a windowed envelope that does not have the tax deductible or non-tax deductible totals. So it's up to you. Look at them, preview all of them. Looking at them with your giver's data isn't going to change anything. It just allows you to do some more research and figure out what layout you like. Global memo. This is just a message that you can have print on everyone's donation statement. So a lot of people I talk to like to go in and customize these. Some will even put in a thank you from pastor, or if you have questions about your statement, contact so-and-so at this phone number or this email. But you can have lots of different statements down here that you can reuse or edit in the future. Or you can have one for each quarter if you want to. Up to you. Down here we have just an alert. Warn if statement spans more than 1 page. Some people like to have just a summary print, not a lot of detail. So if that's what you're going for, just 1 page per person, having that warn if statement spans more than 1 page checkbox can be really helpful to let you know that whoops, somebody's is running over on 2 pages. If you are not a pledging church, you will want to check this box that says do not show pledging information. You don't have to, but it really streamlines our templates and it removes any of that extra pledging wording that might not apply to how your church brings in donations. Do not show separate tax deductibility detail sections. This is up at the top section of the report. Let me go ahead and print it so you can visualize here what I'm talking about. This is the detail section up at the top of our template. If you have created giving accounts and specified that some are tax deductible and some are non-tax deductible, you would have a tax deductible section and then you would have a non-tax deductible section below that. Some people like seeing it broken out that way. Some people don't think it's necessary for the church to show that information that way. So again, it is up to you how you would like to see that tax deductibility detail section displayed. But you can check it, choose a different layout, preview it, see what you think. I am going to come back in here so we can talk about this windowed envelope specifically. So again, this is just our template. You can come in here and you can customize, hide, relabel, anything, change font size. You can really come in here and customize your statement to show the information that your givers want to see. Okay. So giver numbers are going to be up here by default in our template. You don't use giver numbers. Go into that statement designer and you can delete the giver number text box and the field that displays the number itself. Here's that statement date range. This is, again, going to be really important for your givers, so they're going to get a reflection or an idea of what's being covered in the report itself. Here is that non-tax deductible total as well. If you have giving accounts set up to be non-tax deductible, that total would be separated here as well. Church information is going to be over here. This information is pulled from your system information, so your church information that was most likely input when you first got the software. You can definitely go in and update it as things change, but that's where this is pulled from. And then you have your giver name and their address. This fits in your standard windowed envelope. So this helps you to not have to print labels. So if you just have a standard windowed envelope, you can do a nice little trifold with this piece of paper and this should fit in the window just fine. If it doesn't, go back to the report designer and you can kind of judge things around to get it where you want it. This first section, this is your detail section. This is going to show you the date, the account that they gave to, the amount, and the check number if that was inputted. If you don't enter check numbers, again, simply go into the designer and you can hide this field. I want to find somebody who is a pledger though. Here we go. All right, let's talk about the bells instead. So as you can see, they have several donations here, all to general fund. If we come down here to this next section, this is the summary section. This is going to give you specific information about their giving based on what giving accounts they gave to and if they are a pledger or not. Okay, so let's talk about this from a pledging perspective. Here in parentheses, this is specific to the person. So this is the date range that their pledge is in effect, or the date range they have pledged to. Most people are going to set up a pledge campaign for general fund, and then each person that turns in a pledge card or decides to pledge, they will get their own line added to that pledge campaign. And that date range is always going to default to the date range you set for the pledge campaign. However, sometimes you might have an option where you need, or might have the scenario where you need to go in and adjust the start date and the end date for someone's pledge. So this is going to be reflective of that person's pledge. If you see the words general fund with no parentheses after it, like this, that tells us this person did not pledge, because if they did, their pledge dates would show in parentheses. Okay. So back down here, you can see what their frequency is. Their frequency is weekly. You can see how much they are going to give a week. So their amount per frequency. This is their pledged amount. And again, this is their pledged amount based on this date range, because we're only running it for half the year. If they made a prepayment, that would show here. The amount given is again what they gave within this specific date range, so through 06/30. And then their over-under is going to be here. So we can see because it has parentheses that they're actually a little bit behind on their pledge to where they should be halfway through the year. Okay. Down here at the bottom, this is what I call the quarterly monthly total section. You can hide this section. You can hide any of these sections. This would probably be the most commonly hidden section that I see on support calls. But again, it's just another way to look at the data. It's another way to get a summary of when they gave and whether it was a pledged or non-pledged donation. Here's your approved IRS statement that you have to have on it as well. And then here's that global memo that's going to print down at the bottom. And again, this is customizable, but it will show at the bottom of everybody's donation statement. Okay. All right, so just for comparison's sake, I want to go back and I want to run a donation statement through the whole year, and then we're going to come back to the bells so you can see how that changes. So if we do donation statement, again, we're going to leave it for the whole year this time. We're going to click next. A little trick, if you just want to look at one person's donation statement, you don't need to see everybody's. On step 2, come to the bottom, click uncheck print for all, uncheck email for all if you have that set up, and then just find the one person that you're wanting to print the donation statement for or view. Just check their box, and then that's going to bring up your preview for just them. Okay. All right, so again, now our date range is for the whole year. And since we know that they pledge $100 a week, now we can see our pledged amount has shifted. It's definitely increased. So now we're at $5,200. Their amount given is still the same. They've still given $615. They didn't obviously have a donation on that Sunday, which was the 6th, I believe. But now we see their over-under is different. Their over-under is quite a bit larger because it's looking at the full year instead of just the first 6 months. Okay. So a lot of times on support calls, I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but a lot of times people will say, well, do I run it through 6/30 or do I run it through the whole year? Again, it's going to depend on how you want, specifically if you're a pledging church, how you want that pledge amount calculated. If you run it for the whole year, it's going to calculate for the whole year. If you run it for 6 months, it's only going to look at it for 6. Okay. If you have questions about emailing donation statements, this has been a pretty popular support call this month. Feel free to head out to the website. We have a brand new document out there on dealing with setting up email, specifically Gmail. Gmail's always, it seems, changing their security settings and things to keep your account safe, your data safe. But that makes us kind of have to jump through some hoops here at Church Windows to be able to link to that account. But there's some great information out there for setting up email. It's a really nice feature, especially if somebody calls in and says, oh, I forgot to grab my statement at church on Sunday. Could you send it my way? Absolutely. You can pop in here and just email it to them. So if you want more emailing information, go to the Research Center. You can just type in email and we'll get you set up out there. And call us too if you're on support. We'll definitely help you that way as well.